So that was a race at Texas Motor Speedway, and yeah, Kevin Harvick wins the fall race for the third year in a row. Some playoff guys have trouble, and this race was not that good. Let's get into it. This is the fuel. What's happening, ladies and germs? This is the PackerMan, and welcome to today's edition of The Fuel, where today we are going to be reviewing the 2019 AAA Texas 500 at the Texas Motor Speedway, the second race of the round of 8. This race was confusing as all hell. Bipolar is the word that I would be looking for in this case, because how can I even describe a race such as this? I mean, the first stage was absolute fucking garbage, and then they have a super clean second stage. And in the third stage, they have 3 more caution flags. And in between all of that, we somehow have 7 pure lead changes throughout the race. And yet, the race at most points was boring as all hell. I think if you look at this race overall, I said on Twitter that it was a pretty crap race, and it was when you look at it as an overall. But I think the real description of this race, if I had to sum it up with one word, it would be frustrating. This was a frustrating race to watch. Now, why do I say that? Because there were large portions of this race that literally nearly damn near put me to sleep. And the finish, while it finished under green, it was like a between an 80 and 90 lap green flag run. I mean, once everybody got stretched out, literally nothing fucking happened in that finish, and it nearly put me to sleep. In fact, there were several parts of this race that nearly put me into a coma. But what's so damn frustrating is the fact that we saw flashes of great racing throughout this race. I mean, we had 7 pure lead changes. That's more than a lot of races we've seen this year. And we've seen races for the lead that involved like 3 or 4 cars for several laps at a time. We've had side-by-side battles that have lasted for several laps. What was so frustrating about this race is the fact that it could have been great, because you could see the different points in the race where the racing was actually pretty good, but then got interlaced with all these like different parts of the race where nothing literally fucking happened. And on top of all that, you got like 9 fucking caution flags in this race, 6 in the first stage alone. I mean, Eric Estep went on the record and said, yeah, it was a slightly sloppy first stage. Slightly? I'm not sure I would call 6 caution flags in less than 80 laps sloppy, or slightly sloppy. Stage 1 was a total fucking mess, which made it even more confusing when Stage 2 was completely clean. And then Stage 3 had 3 more cautions, and then after the last caution, it went green the rest of the way for like 80 laps, and literally nothing fucking happened. It was pretty much the Kevin Harvick show, in this race for a third year in a row. As you could probably tell, I mean, I'm just, like I said, that race nearly put me to sleep. You know, and I'm having a hard fucking time staying awake just doing this review. This season, and I've said this a couple of times in the past couple of weeks, this season, these NASCAR seasons can be a grind to get through. But what's also kind of frustrating is the fact that, I mean, earlier in this season, we were getting some pretty good, solid races, but it seems like ever since these playoffs began, the quality of the racing has just taken a nosedive. I mean, I think Vegas was a pretty decent race, you know, but fucking Richmond wasn't that good. The Roval was not that good this year. Martinsville sucked. Fucking Dover sucked. Kansas was not that good. This race sucked. I mean, really, the only race in the playoffs that has been a good race has been Talladega. But other than that, the quality of the races in these playoffs so far, just not been that good. And this race was no exception. And it sucks because there were flashes of brilliance in this race. But, I mean, it's typical Texas. This track fucking sucks ass. I mean, the spring race was decent, but, I mean, I honestly can't remember a race from this track that was even remotely memorable. Maybe the 2004 race, but that was only because of the finish. I can't remember a goddamn thing about the rest of the race. But the only thing I remember from that race between Elliott Sadler and Casey Kane was the finish. And then they somehow made this track even worse by making turns 1 and 2 a different banking than turns 3 and 4. Like, how the fuck is that going to work? And then they tried putting down the PJ1 for this race, and it did not fucking work whatsoever. I mean, everybody was running up into it during, you know, the first part of the race, and it wasn't working. It was causing all these fucking caution flags. Another thing that kind of pissed me off during this entire weekend is the splitters on these cars need to fucking go. Because there were 3 instances during this race weekend, 2 in Xfinity, 1 in Cup, where a driver went through a slide, would have been okay, but because the splitter dug into the racetrack, into the grass, it completely tears the fucking front of the car off. And it's just like, I mean, that's needless. You know, and the same thing happened in the Cup race, where, you know, Denny Hamlin got loose off turn 4, spun. Would have been fine, except that his car the front of his car dug into the track, damaged the splitter and the front end, and he was off the pace for the rest of the night. You know, some people have been talking about, you know, just putting artificial turf at these tracks. The grass isn't the problem, it's the fucking splitters. They need to go. You know, bring back the old valences. Because these splitters are just, they're garbage. They need to fucking go. Period. Anywho, real quick, let's get to the news of the week, because I just want to get this review done and over with. So, news of the week. We're going to start off with some injury updates. Well, medical/injury updates. If y'all remember the previous weekend at Martinsville, Matt Tifft suffered had a medical emergency, which he had to go to the hospital, and then eventually he was sent home. He actually provided an update on his Twitter, and the result was kind of shocking, to say the least, or maybe not really so much, because he reported that when he was in the hauler, and it was Saturday morning, not Friday morning, like I had said, his tongue apparently started cramping up, and then he just kind of blacked out. As it turned out, he had suffered a seizure. Now, whether that is a result of the brain tumor that he had a few years ago is anybody's guess at this point, although I would have to imagine that there is some sort of side effect from having that tumor removed. But yeah, Matt Tifft suffered a seizure during the Martinsville weekend, which is going to possibly create some messy problems for Front Row Motorsports, because typically when a driver suffers a seizure, they can't get behind the wheel for up to 6 months. I mean, it could literally take up to 6 months for Matt Tifft to get back behind the wheel of a race car again. The problem is, the new season's only 4 months away. So that could create some real issues for Front Row Motorsports going forward. But Matt Tifft pretty much said that the important thing for him right now is to get his health in order. And, you could say what you want about his career and how he made it to Cup without not having very many accolades to show for it. But that's neither here nor there at this point. And that's really not the important thing right now. The most important thing is for Matt Tifft to get healthy and hopefully be back behind the wheel of a race car in the near future. And another little bit of injury news. Jenna Fryer reported on the 1st that Denny Hamlin will have off-season surgery to repair a torn labrum in his left shoulder. And just for the record, Hamlin said that it was not as a result of that crew member yanking him down from behind last week. It's been a nagging injury for some time. And he said that he will have all-season surgery to repair the torn labrum in his left shoulder. Recovery time is 10 weeks, so he would be ready for Daytona, but he did decline a consideration for a Rolex 24 seat because of the recovery. Now, for those of you that don't know, the labrum is basically a piece of cartilage in your shoulder that basically keeps the ball of your joint in its socket. And when you tear the labrum, it basically lets the ball kind of move around, which from what I heard can be extremely painful. And there could be times where the shoulder can dislocate itself because of that. So Hamlin is going to have off-season surgery to repair the damage. That guy just seems to have a knack for having weird-ass injuries. I mean, he suffered a back injury in 2013 in a crash. He's had ACL injuries in both knees from basketball. And now he has a torn labrum in his left shoulder that he needs repaired. That's just crazy to me. But, he's basically toughing it out for the remainder of the season because, he's still trying to go for a championship. So, but that's going to be something that he's going to have to do when the season's done and over with. Let's get into some silly season news. First, let's go to IndyCar. And this one definitely caused a firestorm amongst the IndyCar fan base, for sure. And this was a very shocking announcement, and this team received a lot of backlash because of it. Arrow McLaren SP, formerly Schmidt-Peterson Arrow Racing, released James Hinchcliffe. Now, technically, he's still under contract with them for one more year. The thing is, they have Pato O'Ward and Oliver Askew taking the 2 spots on that team for 2020. The thing that got a lot of people extremely riled up is the fact that they decided to do this at the end of October. A full month after the end of the season. When all of the good seats have already been filled. So where the fuck is James gonna go? You know, it just makes no fucking sense. I mean, why would Arrow McLaren do that to one of the most popular drivers in the IndyCar series? To me, that just makes no fucking sense. And they received a lot, and I mean a lot of backlash from the fan base. And other drivers were also slamming them for the move. Now, I'm not going to blame Pato O'Ward or Oliver Askew, for getting the spots at Arrow McLaren. This has nothing to do with them. They have an opportunity to drive for a decent team. Of course, they're and they've earned it. They're the last 2 Indy Lights Series champions. But for Arrow McLaren to just simply fuck over James Hinchcliffe like that is beyond dirty. I'm sorry. I mean, why would you wait until all of the good seats are already gone until you make your announcement that James is not going to be driving first in 2020? Why the fuck would you do that? Especially to someone who has been a part of your team for many years now, and he's brought you several victories in the process. I don't get it. Especially someone who's as marketable as James Hinchcliffe, as popular as James Hinchcliffe is. Why the fuck would you even do that? It makes no fucking sense to me. But yeah, that was a dumb move on their part, in my opinion. But let's move on to the next portion of Silly Season News. Ganassi. They announced that Ganassi and Kurt Busch, as well as Monster Energy, they have signed multi-year extensions with the organization. So evidently, Ganassi and Kurt Busch, they've been in talks for a while. Kurt definitely wanted to come back, for at least one more year with Ganassi. And of course, he won at Kentucky earlier this year. That sort of kind of, fanned the flames that, maybe they had, that Ganassi finally found, a guy to drive that one car. But, apparently they have signed a multi-year deal. Not only with Kurt Busch, but also with Monster Energy. Monster Energy is no longer going to be the title sponsor for the Cup Series. In fact, there isn't going to be a title sponsor for the Cup Series. It's going to be 2020 is going to be the start of the multi-tiered sponsor thingamajig plan that NASCAR is doing. But yeah, that's good news for Ganassi because now they have Monster Energy on board as a full-time sponsor for several more years, and they have Kurt Busch remaining on board. And then one last piece of news is Go Fast Racing forms a technical alliance with Stewart-Haas Racing for 2020. Similar to what Levine Family Racing is doing with Joe Gibbs, and like Joe Gibbs did with Furniture Row. So Go Fast is now has a technical alliance with Stewart-Haas, which begs the question: is Corey LaJoie going to remain at the 32 car? Because with Stewart-Haas forming a technical alliance with Go Fast, there's a lot of rumors swirling around that Cole Custer is going to be moving up to the Cup Series next year. And the thing is, Daniel Suarez hasn't basically completed a deal with Stewart-Haas yet. They're still trying to hash things out. So there's a lot of rumors swirling around that Custer might be moving into either the 41 car next year or the 32 car. At this point, there is no news as far as that's concerned. But Go Fast now has a technical alliance with Stuart Haas, so that's only going to fan the flames of Cole Custer coming up to the Cup Series next year. And why wouldn't he? I mean, have you seen what he's been doing in the Xfinity Series? And it would make sense because, Tyler Reddick's moving up. Look what he's been doing. Christopher Bell. I mean, that rookie battle next year would be pretty fucking amazing in my opinion. But that is your news of the week. So, without further ado, let's get into this review. So, 2019 AAA Texas 500 at TexASS. Stages 1 and 2 were 85 laps, with stage 3 being 164 laps. Here we go. Kevin Harvick starts from the pole. The 95 was actually smoking on the pace laps. I don't know what that was all about. Apparently there wasn't really any problems with it though. Eric Jones leads lap 1 on the outside, but Harvick shoots ahead in turn 1 for our first pure lead change of the day on lap 2. Had a Congo line from 4th on back, but then we had our first caution on lap 9. Chase Elliott, one of the playoff contenders, spins out in turn 2 and slams the wall. He basically got up into the PJ1, kind of tested it out, and it didn't really work out so well. So now Chase Elliott is basically in a position where, 3 of the 4 guys are in a position where they might have to win in order to get in. With Chase Elliott at this point, it's not might have to win, he has to win. He's 78 points below the cut line at this point. And the most you can gain or lose in one race is 59 points. So there's no two ways about it. If Chase Elliott wants a shot at the championship, he has to win Phoenix. There's no other ways about it. He can't rely on points or any of that stuff. He's too far back. And that's not, well, he could possibly make up points. No. There's no way he can make up enough points, even if he wins the race. Well, even if he finishes second and, wins both stages and finishes second, there's no way he can make up that amount of points. It's more than one race. So he has to win at Phoenix. So Harvick leads on the restart. Jones leads the first lap after the restart. Harvick and Jones are side by side for the lead for several laps. Harvick gets ahead again, but then we get our second caution on lap 16 for debris from a braking marker. Okay. Several cars come in for service. Harvick leads on the restart once again, and he gets clear of teammates Daniel Suarez and Eric Almirola. Stenhouse moves up to 4th on lap 22. Hamlin and Stenhouse start fighting hard for that position. Logano gets way loose in turn 3 but hangs on to it. Jimmy Johnson coming to the field early on after starting in the back. Then we get our third caution on lap 44 when Corey LaJoie slams the wall in turn 4 after getting out of the groove. Many cars come in for service on this caution, including Kevin Harvick. Eric Jones stays out and leads on the restart. Jones and Bowyer are side by side for the lead, but Bowyer gets by for the top spot. For a second pure lead change of the day on lap 49, Harvick gets by Truex for third. We have our fourth caution on lap 54 when Ricky Stenhouse and Brad Keselowski crash hard on turn 4. Both basically got out of the groove and into turns 3 and 4 into the PJ1. Keselowski went first, and then I think maybe Stenhouse got into it as well and kind of tried to react to Keselowski, and both got hard into the wall with Stenhouse slamming into the back of the 2, and that was the end of the day for both of those guys. Clint Bowyer leads on the restart. Harvick goes 3 wide with Jones and Truex for second. Paul Menard and Truex fight for third for a little bit. Harvick starts challenging Bowyer for the lead, but we have our fifth caution on lap 71 when Corey LaJoie spins in turns 3 and 4 and slams the wall. I think this time it pretty much puts him out of the race. And at this point I was like, this race is getting extremely messy. Bowyer leads on the restart. Harvick gets by Kyle Busch for second. And then we get our sixth caution on lap 81. Already up to 6 cautions in this first stage. And this was another big one. Denny Hamlin gets loose in the high groove off turn 4 and spins out. And he gets damaged to the right front when the splitter digs into the grass. And this was just another case of, you know, the splitter digging into the grass and damaging the car when it really shouldn't have happened. And here's another fucked up stat. Denny Hamlin, you know, has 5 wins on the year, and he now finds himself on the outside looking in. Joey Logano has only had 1 top 5 finish throughout this entire playoff, and he's in position to make it into the championship 4. This playoff format fucking sucks, and that goes without saying at this point. Truex comes in for service. He's looking to win the race, and it doesn't really matter to him because he's already through. Several cars come in with the 19. Boyer leads the final lap of stage 1, but Harvick outruns Boyer to win stage number 1 and get the 10 points. Stage 1 was complete trash. Moving on, stage number 2 was also 85 laps, and here's where things kind of flip-flopped. You know, stage 1 was caution heavy, stage 2 was completely clean. The fuck? That just shows you how bipolar this race is, especially with the quality of the racing. Like, this race was just weird. Everyone comes in for service. Alex Bowman stays out and leads the start of stage 2. Johnson starts challenging Bowman for the race lead and actually gets it. That's our 3rd pure lead change on lap number 100. Almirola gets by Bowman for 2nd. Almirola was good all day today. At the time I'm recording this. Almirola and Jones trying to run down Johnson for the lead. Suarez moves up to 4th. He actually had a good run too. Top 4 within 7/10 of a second of each other at this point. This is when, you know, the racing was actually pretty good. Suarez gets by Jones to move up to 3rd. Harvick starts coming back towards the front. Kyle Larson was actually making the second groove work at this point as he works his way towards the front. Bowman kicks off green flag stops on lap 135. Almirola challenges Johnson for the lead on the outside and actually takes it for a 4th pure lead change on lap 140. Almirola pits from the lead on lap 145 and cycles back with the lead, and that's where he stays for the remainder of the stage. He won stage 2 by like 4 seconds. It was surprisingly clean after the chaos of stage 1, but still not much happening. Everyone comes in for service. William Byron leads the start of stage number 3, which is 164 laps. Suarez and Byron were side by side for the lead for a few laps, and then Suarez finally got ahead for a 5th pure lead change in lap 179. Almirola gets by Eric Jones for the 5th position. So the top 5 was under a blanket at this point, but then we get our 7th caution on lap 186 when Johnson gets very loose. Tries to save the car, tried to do the Tokyo Drift, but slams the wall in turn 2. They weren't able to repair the car and had to retire from the race. So Suarez leads on the race start, but we immediately get another caution on lap 191 when the 52 of Garrett Smithley and the 38 of David Reagan crash hard in turn 1. After the 52 gets loose and slams into the door of the 38, which sends both of them hard into the outside wall, but both drivers were able to walk away. And then here was a rule that I was not aware actually existed. Apparently, Harvick was penalized under, I think it was under one of the previous cautions that he came in, for having a tire over the wall, but not changing it. Therefore, it was a violation of the rules. Huh? Why are we now just learning about this? See, this is why NASCAR needs to make their rule book public. Because to me, it just feels like they're making up rules on the fly. And when you don't make your rule book public, it really makes me question what the fuck you're doing. Fucking stupid. I mean, I'm not a fan of Harvick by any stretch of the imagination, but that's a fucking stupid penalty. But then again, you know, what else is new with this fucking company? Suarez leads on the restart. Byron and Kurt Busch start fighting hard for 3rd. Almirola and Busch trying to chase down Suarez for the race lead. Almirola is able to and takes the lead for a 6th pure lead change on lap 202. Almirola, Suarez, and Kurt Busch within half a second of each other for the lead, so yet another spot in the race where the racing was actually good. Byron gets by Kurt for 3rd and kicks off green flag stops on lap 226. Kurt Busch gets by Suarez for second. Larson by Jones for fourth. And then we get our ninth and final caution on lap 243. And this actually caused a bit of controversy. But this caused quite a bit of controversy when Bubba Wallace loses the left rear tire and spins out in turn 2 in the middle green flag pit stops, which actually caught Kyle Larson a lap down. And he basically got on the radio and said, yeah, NASCAR needs to really start looking into penalizing people for intentionally spinning. A lot of cars come in for service. Almirola leads on the restart. Harvick goes 3 wide to get back up to the third position and gets by Suarez for second. Harvick is right on Almirola's bumper for the race lead and starts challenging him for it. And then we have our 7th and final pure lead change on lap 255. And not much else happens between this point and the end of the race. 255 was the last pure lead change. This is a 334 lap race. Suarez and Kyle Busch start fighting hard for third. Blaney, Bowman, and Newman start fighting hard for sixth for a while. Kyle Larson kicks off the final round of stops on lap 304. Harvick pits from the lead on lap 308. He cycles back with the lead. In the closing laps of the race, Ryan Newman gets in the way again, but doesn't really stop Kevin Harvick, who goes on to win the AAA Texas 500. This race was poop. That's really all I got to say. Your top 10 finishers in today's race. Of course, Harvick with the victory. Eric Almirola in second. Daniel Suarez in third. So that's SHR with a 1-2-3 finish. Joe Logano coming home in the fourth position. Alex Bowman in fifth. So a good run for him. Truex Jr. didn't really look good early on, but they made some adjustments to that car and actually ended up in the sixth position at the end of the day. Kyle Busch actually stalled it on pit road on the final stop, but was still able to come home in seventh. Ryan Blaney in the eighth position, Kurt Busch in ninth, and Eric Jones rounds out the top 10. So, with 2 races remaining in the season and 1 race to go in the round of 8, here's how the round of 8 standings look. Heading into Phoenix next week. And can you believe we only have 2 races left in the season? Oh, the end of the season cannot come soon enough. So, championship standings heading into Phoenix. Martin Truex Jr. and Kevin Harvick have punched their tickets to Homestead. Truex with that dominating win at Martinsville, and Kevin Harvick with his win at Texas. Kyle Busch and Joey Logano are in the third and fourth spots, plus 22 and plus 20. So they're actually in a pretty decent spot. But let's not forget what happened in the round of 12. I think, was it the round of 12? Yeah, it was the round of 12 actually. When Chase Elliott was more than 20 points behind Brad Keselowski and still ended up making it into the round of 8. So do not count out Hamlin, Blaney, Larson, or Elliott just yet, because a victory will put one of those guys in and put either Kyle Busch or Joey Logano out. But unless that scenario happens, we're looking at a repeat of last year's Championship 4. Yeah, despite everything that this format does, it seems like the same guys end up in the Championship 4 year after year after year. Notably, Truex, Harvick, and Kyle Busch, the big 3. If they make it in, I think this will be the 4th time in 5 years those 3 guys have been in the Championship 4 all together. That's a little bit ridiculous. So much for parity, huh? As for my final rating for this race, I honestly don't know. I mean, this was a frustrating race to watch because there were points in this race that actually showcased some really good racing, and then there were points where I just felt like taking a nap, like for serious. And that final run of the race, the last 50 or so laps, was probably the most boring fucking 50 laps of the entire season. The best I can give this race is a 3 out of 10. I can't do any better than that, honestly. I mean, we had the 7 pure elite changes, and there were points in this race that were actually good. But the large pockets of boring ass racing, but literally nothing happening. That was a huge negative. 6 cautions in that first stage? Are you serious? That was trash. 9 cautions overall. That's fucking trash. Overall, this was just not a good race whatsoever. And it's just another race from this playoff that just did not live up to expectations whatsoever. I mean, the spring race was actually pretty decent. I think I actually gave that race above a 6. I can't remember because it's been quite some time. But yeah, this race was just not that good. Martinsville wasn't that good. Kansas was eh. Dover sucked. This playoff is, I mean, in terms of race quality, this playoff has just sucked. And I honestly don't see it getting any better. Hopefully Phoenix next week will surprise me, but I doubt it. I'm not going to get my hopes up. I'm just ready for this season to be over. But anyways, that's going to do it for tonight. Thank you very much for watching. I realize that, I don't have the same kind of energy I usually do, but this race, at the end of this race, nearly put me to sleep. So, there you go. But thank you very much for watching. And until next time, this is the PackerMan signing out. Bye. Well, that is all for today's video. Thank you very much for watching. Be sure to rate, comment, favorite, like, and subscribe to my channels here on YouTube.com and over on BitChute.com. If you would like to sponsor my channel, go to my channel page at subscribestar.com. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, this is the PackerMan signing out. Have a good one.